Okay, we'd like to go ahead and call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Lake Forest Planning Commission to order, noting the date is December the 12th, 2013. With that, we'll let the record reflect that all commissioners are present except Commissioner Hamilton tonight, and we'd ask Commissioner please the pledge.
I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. This is the time in our meeting where we allow the public to address the Commission on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. If there's anyone that wants to address an item, you'll have an opportunity to do so. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. However, the Commission would not be able to take any action on that item. Is there anyone here tonight that wants to address us on an item not on the agenda tonight? Thank you. Okay. We have Mr. Jim Gardner.
Good evening, Chairman and Commission members and staff. My name is Jim Gardner. I live in Lake Forest. I wanted to address you on an item not on the agenda, an item that has to do with planning. I'm at the Planning Commission, right? Yeah, that's right. So it's a planning issue. There's all kinds of stuff happening in the city. In the dog park people, I'm a dog park owner and a dog park advocate. And community garden people, my wife's a master gardener. I, of course, am a gardener. And I'm in favor of the community garden. So these are topics I'm happy to see and activities I'm happy to see moving forward. And it seems as if they're beginning to circle around Whispering Park, which is that empty, horrible-looking slash of land at Lake Forest Drive, where Dimension hits it there. In any event, as much as I'm in favor of those two things, of course, the arena soccer thing and the mayor, that's really dumb. I don't think anything but the mayor is in favor of that. But the other two are good things to happen. But it seems to me that that's a piece of land, and it worries me more the city as a whole than the dog park or the community park, all of which I think are important. Anyhow, it seems to me the Planning Commission should be looking at that piece of land and talking about what's the best use of that piece of land for the city's sake, not to wait until somebody comes to you and says, here, I'm going to put a dog park there, do you like the dog park? Well, you might, but it seems to me there's a prior question, namely, is there a better use of that for the entire city? And only the Planning Commission can do that, because otherwise all these vested interest people are going to be looking at that. You don't think the Planning Commission can do that? Too much planning? One of the criticisms I have had of the Planning Commission is, in fact, that you are reactive and not proactive. So I'd like that somehow, if that topic comes up, I think that's something you could do that helps the city as a whole. Not that I'm opposed to a dog park or I'm in favor of all those things, but I'd rather see that piece of land considered for the city as a whole first of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. Okay. Seeing no one else, unless they want to jump up now, all right, then we'll move on to our consent calendar. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second. Second.
Okay. We've got a motion with second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Okay. And that'll take us to public hearings.
Our first public hearing this evening is a minor plan sign program for a freeway-oriented sign for the new Sammy's Original restaurant building. This evening, I'd like to introduce Jessica Magna. She's been an intern with the Development Services Department for the last 8 months. This is her first debut performance in front of the Planning Commission. Jessica has a undergrad degree from UCLA and just recently finished her master's in urban and regional planning at UCI.
Good evening, Vice Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you tonight is a minor plan sign program for a new freeway-oriented sign for the Sammy's Original Restaurant building facade facing the 5 freeway. At the proposed location, the city has already issued sign permits for 2 signs attached to the building. The sign facing Lake Center Drive is comprised of solid channel letters with reverse halo illumination, whereas the sign facing Rockfield Showplace Shopping Center has exposed bulb lights. These 2 signs were required to meet the city's sign code and were issued over the counter by staff. However, the sign facing the freeway is required to have Planning Commission approval of a minor plan sign program. The freeway sign is comprised of aluminum channel letters with the sign copy, Sammy's Original. The proposed Sammy's sign will have 39-inch tall aluminum channel letters with the weathered finish. The letters will be cut out to contain exposed bulb lights with white vinyl backing and reverse white halo illumination. The original sign is composed of 19-inch tall aluminum channel letters with internal illumination. The sign is centered horizontally and vertically in the sign band area, and there is adequate spacing around the sign in the sign band area, which does not create a cluttered look. There is adequate distance from the sign to the nearest freeway travel lane. The size of the sign is proportional with the facade of the building and does not detract from the architecture of the building. The sign contains fixed lighting as conditioned and will not have any flashing, moving, or blinking lights. The sign complies with the city sign code. With approval of this minor plan sign program, the sign meets the city sign ordinance requirements. Accordingly, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt the corresponding resolution approving the minor plan sign program as conditioned. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them tonight. And the applicants in the audience.
Great. Well, Jessica, welcome back. Any questions for staff on this?
Just a couple of easy ones, actually. And I do this mainly, although I know the answers, I do this to get kind of some things on the record and to get some information out to those who maybe don't have as much knowledge of our inner workings. Am I correct that this particular sign is actually identical to the one on the, I believe it's the east building elevation that's already been approved?
The sign is similar. It has, the sign facing the freeway actually has a white outline to kind of make the sign a little bit more bold.
Okay, but as far as the style, with the Sammy's being in the exposed bulbs and the original being in the white backlit. Okay. And then secondarily, the only reason that this is coming to us as opposed to being approved over the counter like the other 2 is because it faces the freeway. Is that correct?
Yes.
The additional requirements that come in play with that being the case. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? No. Looks like you get off easy right now. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and we'll open the public comments. And we've got a couple of requests to speak. And let's go ahead and start. Mr. Gardner, would you like to approach the microphone?
Yeah, hi, good evening again. Jim Gardner, Lake Forest. You know, the ones I saw on the web looked like they were light bulbs. Are they no longer light bulbs? If I could ask that. Otherwise, they're no longer light bulbs. My comment is irrelevant.
Yeah, there are light bulbs inside. The letters are cut out, and there's light bulbs that are exposed.
Okay, that's what I thought. And here it doesn't look like they're the light bulbs. Yeah, my only comment on that, and this is obviously an aesthetic and a moral or a personal opinion, is I find that sleazy. In fact, I find a gambling den sleazy. And that's no disrespect for the people who make their living that way. I just find that sleazy, personally. I'm a resident of Lake Forest. I'm entitled to my opinion. Many people find that sleazy and were offended by the fact that a gambling den was opened in the city. I know before CJ, or certainly if Andrew was here, he'd be telling me, let the business decide and let the market decide, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not true. In fact, we spent millions of dollars stopping marijuana dispensaries from being here. In fact, this commission denied approvals to alcohol, this extra alcohol. So in fact, we do care about our morals. We do take that into consideration. And the light bulbs and all that, it just, to me, that's sleaze. It's Las Vegas. It's, the gambling den already is going to attract an undesirable element. Again, I'm just speaking for myself and morally. And having the light bulbs just adds to that. So I'm not opposing a big sign like that, if it were a solid sign, etc. But to me, the light bulbs just speaks of Las Vegas, and it's just not going to attract the kind of people I want to find in my city. So I'd ask you to think about that, and with all due respect for their rights to have a sign, I have no opposition to that. Anything except the light bulbs and the Las Vegas sign. At least it's not going to blink. There's going to be no nude rodeo people, etc. So it could be a lot worse than it is, but the light bulbs find that too Las Vegas for my tastes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ted Howard. We'd ask you to please restate your name and give us the city of your residence, please.
Yeah, my name is Ted Howard, and I reside in Riverside, California. I just wanted to say that the only reason why we are here is because it is facing the freeway, and if you guys didn't have the ordinance of the freeway-oriented signs, then there's no reason why that sign would not already be installed. And pretty much that's all I want to say. Thanks.
Great. We appreciate you being here. If we have any questions, we'll address them to you. All right.
You say, I'm sorry, when you say the only reason we are here, are you the property owner? Okay. All right. So I have a question for either of you. I look at the sign as put on a piece of paper, and I went driving around, and I saw Buca de Beppo. Am I looking at a very similar sign?
That's exactly correct.
Okay. And I guess I don't consider Italian sleazy, so I kind of like your sign.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, that limits our speakers at this time unless there's anyone else, and if so, we invite you to speak. Otherwise, we'll bring it back up here and we'll have some discussion. Who wants to start?
I'll go ahead and jump in tonight. Yeah, Mr. Gardner has actually kind of alluded to I think what I've made fairly obvious as my stance in general, to defer as long as it's within the guidelines that we have, the structural and the legal things that we've set forth, the requirements that we've asked of property owners. As long as they're complying with those things, I don't want to be the pretty police. Is this exactly the type of business I would have chosen? No. There were actually prior uses requested that were denied by this planning commission before I was on it that I would have preferred. But we're here today. It's been approved. The plan, the requested signage does comply with all of our plans. It does comply with everything we've asked. I don't see any reason to say no. And on top of that, the fact that we have de facto approved through an ordinance that allowed it to be done at administrative level across the counter, essentially the identical sign on a different building wall. I mean, the only major distinction is that it's freeway oriented, and that mainly comes into play because of Caltrans regulations that we had to comply with as a city. And so if all that's been met, I don't think we have legal grounds to say anything. I could be wrong. I'm not practicing anymore. I'm not on the Caltrans regulations, although it is the area of law I practiced in the past. But I think we would be hard-pressed to find a reason to deny a sign that matches another sign already approved on the same building. So with that, I'm going to stop.
Mr. Fuentes, comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. I don't have any objections. I agree with what Commissioner Brower has said, that we are, this is an operation basically of something that we've pretty much given all the approvals to, and there's nothing to prevent me from not approving this one. So unless there's any other comments, I'll look for a motion.
I'll make that motion to adopt the resolution of the commission to approve the sign program 9-13-3563 for the freeway-oriented sign at the new Sammy's Original Restaurant Building located at 23221 Lake Center Drive.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion passes.
Our next item is a minor plan sign program for temporary subdivision and model home identification signage for the Baker Ranch residential community, and Jennifer Mansour has a report this evening.
Good evening, Vice Chairman and Commissioners. This item before you tonight is a minor plan sign program for temporary signage for the model homes at the new Baker Ranch residential project. As you've probably seen if you've driven down Alton or Bake, model homes for 6 of the communities are currently under construction, and the developer is anticipating to have the models open at the beginning of February next year. The developer is proposing to have 6 types of different signs at each model home complex. The signs maintain a consistent design and color palette, and all the signs will be on private property and will be required to be removed 2 weeks after the issuance of the last certificate of occupancy for the neighborhood. The developer is also proposing directional signs and flagpoles along Monarch and Catalina, which is the main loop road through the development. The developer is proposing to locate most of these signs in the landscape parkway along the street, which is currently on private property, but in the next few months will be dedicated to the city as public right-of-way. The directional signs will help customers navigate to the different model home complexes, and the flagpoles include vertical banners will flank the main street intersections of the project and the street intersections leading to the model home complexes. The program also includes signage for the visitor center, which will later be the recreation center, and maintaining the existing future facility signs that are currently on Alton, Bake, and Town Center. The sign program was designed to be used for all 3 construction phases of the project and allows for staff review of minor changes to the directional signage through the different phases. Pursuant to the city's sign code, the proposed sign requires the approval of a minor plan sign program, and the maximum number, size, and height of the signs is subject to Planning Commission review. Although the zoning ordinance does not have any specific regulations, the proposed temporary signs are typical for a new master plan community, and they are not excessive in number, size, or height, and the number of signs are adequate to help prospective buyers safely navigate the site. The design and proposed colors for the signs are consistent with the character of the new community and will create a consistent temporary sign appearance amongst the different developers in the community during all 3 construction phases of the project. Accordingly, staff is recommending the Planning Commission adopt the resolution approving the minor plan sign program. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and the applicant is in the audience tonight. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. Any questions for staff this time?
I have a question. Where's my button? Jennifer, the flagpoles, is that a typical height? Like, let's look at what we had at the most recent model homes. I see they're, what, 20, 21 feet? Are they higher than they have been?
I'd be slightly guessing, but I think the ones at Whistler Ranch were about 19, 20 feet. So they were close to the same height.
And you like that height?
I think we're comfortable with the height. It's kind of the height also of like a light pole or something that would be in a parkway like that.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Brower, any questions for staff? Okay, I don't have any at this time. Okay, with that, make sure we've got the public hearing open, and we've got a couple of people that would like to address us. Let's start with Janet Benavides. If you would please restate your name and give us your city of residence.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Janet Benavides, and I reside in Chino Hills. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you this evening for your time in reviewing our proposal. I also want to acknowledge Jennifer and all the efforts that she's put forward in reviewing our program and putting together our proposal and getting us on tonight's agenda. I feel that everything is covered in the package. We're excited to be bringing Baker Ranch to Lake Forest, and we look forward to a wonderful master plan. It's exciting to see everything that is going through the commission and everything that is currently taking place, and we are anticipating hopefully getting approval tonight to be able to move forward. With our timing, it's going to be critical for us to try to obtain approval this evening so that we can have the signs produced and installed prior to our grand opening in February. So we're very excited, and we thank you for your time this evening. I am available for any additional questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions of Ms. Benavides right now? No? All right, good, thanks. Okay. We have a second request to speak, Jim Gardner.
Hi, once again, my name is Jim Gardner, Lake Forest. You'd be happy to know I limit myself to 3, so this is, I've shot my wad. I'm about to shoot my wad. Anyhow, it looks really nice. I have no objections to the program or the plan. Happy to have them. But they may want to, or you may independently want to, look at the elephant in the room, and that is the prison that's less than a mile from where they're building Baker Ranch. Not only is it a prison, but it has dangerous felons in it. Don't kid yourselves when the sheriff tells you this is minimum security, people. Minimum security is, and I've worked in prisons and for the police. Minimum security is a classification that prisons use to talk about whether there's a danger to the wardens, the people inside. It's got nothing to do with their dangerousness to us when they escape. As a matter of fact, not so long ago, a dangerous felon did escape. He was in there for assault and narcotics and robbery and all kinds of things. When that guy got out, and when the next dangerous felon gets out, he will be a danger to all of us. Well, it's worse than that. It's the way it is now. They're about to be building a prison less than a half a mile from where Baker Ranch is going to be, and from where existing people are living, which has got maximum security cells in it. So not only will you have dangerous felons, you will have murderers, serial murderers. You will have the worst kinds of people on earth. So it seems to me a planning commission, I still think I'm here at a planning commission, should be interested in planning for signs along that route. Amongst prisons throughout California, they have signs that say no hitchhikers, because one of the main things that people do when they escape is hitch a ride, and then Bob's your uncle for the poor guy who picks him up. So that's a consideration. So there may be some kind of safety consideration you want to think of, and you may want to design it in conjunction with Baker Ranch to make it tasteful, and I don't want to, cause any problems or make anybody nervous on the one hand. On the other hand, the reality is today there are dangerous felons there, and in the not-too-distant future there will be maximum security people living there, and it seems to me we have an obligation to inform people. That's the one way that's been done commonly. There may be other ways in which you can do that. I have no great suggestions at the moment, but that seems to me, again, what a planning commission should be looking for in the near future. So thank you very much, and I'm in favor of what they're doing there. It looks very nice to me. I have no problems with it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Garden. Okay, is there anyone else that wanted to address us on this tonight? Okay, well, let's bring it back up here. Who wants to start?
Might as well keep the trend going. I'll jump in. In general, I like what you guys have done. The signs that are shown in the renderings and whatnot are tastefully done, informative. It doesn't appear, looking at the map, that there's too much clutter or signs on top of signs. With one exception, for me, and I doubt that it'll be a deal breaker, but maybe I can get some support from my colleagues up here. On the flagpoles, the model complex flagpoles, page 7 of 10 in our report, 2 per model home complex, I don't have a problem with. 4 per model home complex parking lot seems like a bit of overkill. I mean, if you're going to space 2 throughout the whole complex, but you're going to put 4 right on top of each other in the parking lot, it's just, I'm not a big fan of the flagpoles in general. Again, it's not likely to be a deal breaker for me, but it just seems a bit excessive. And other than that, I really like everything I've seen.
Commissioner Fuentes, comments?
I too like the sign program that you have presented to us, and it looks like there's been a lot of thought, and I'm hopeful that it will be a great marketing tool for you. Thank you.
Okay, I would agree. This is typical of everything that we've seen coming out of this project to date. It's done exceptionally well, I think. And maybe we can ask a question that, based on Commissioner Brower's comment about the relevance of 4 per model, 4 flag sign poles, for maybe you can give us something to work from that would be maybe help us not have that question in our mind. Would you mind giving us a little more information as to why 4 is the number we have here?
It really depends on the model complex. We're looking at 6 model complexes right now. And if you look at how we traditionally plan, normally in our master plans, we have about 10 flags. So that's where we have 10 flags at the model complex. The way we start them is the first model that's furthest away from the parking lot, we'll do a flag on that side, and then we typically try to do a flag in between the houses and space them out going through. The model parking lots that we have, we're combining one location, for example. 2 of our communities are in one model parking complex. It is an extremely large model complex parking lot. We're not looking to overclutter. We gave the capability. In some of our locations, it'll be less than others, but we do have some fairly large parking lots within the master plan that you can do 2 flags at the entrance. We have one that's going to loop around, for example. You're going to enter on one side of the parking lot, exit through the other side of the parking lot. So to be able to anchor that entrance with the flag on each side and also anchor the exit with the flag on each side, that would provide us the 4, and it gives the symmetry. It would look odd for us to have 2 flags at the entrance and not 2 flags at the exit of the parking lot. But we, too, are being very careful with not making it overcluttered. We removed flags throughout the throwaways, the main roads, just to make it look clean and not to overdo it when it comes to the signs and with the flags. We want it to look professional.
Great. Okay.
And if I may, may I clarify also, because this is actually a typo. It's actually 2 per model home. So they're asking for 2 for each model home, not per model home complex. Sorry.
Okay. You've got two per model home, not 2 per model home complex.
Right. That's how it's written in the program. It's just a typo in the
Okay. So if we've got 4 model homes for that complex, then we've got 8 flags, 2
Plus
in
the
front of
4.
each of those 4 models.
Right.
Okay, just so we kind of understand, and then we would have 4 more in the parking lot.
Correct.
Right. Now, you've said something about how you have got a parking lot that serves for 2 tracks.
Correct.
So how many flags are in the parking lot?
On that one, in the parking lot would be 4. I wouldn't end up doing, it's one sales information center, so that parking lot, although it's servicing 2 model complexes, there would only be 4 flags allowed in that parking
Okay,
lot.
so those flags would identify both of those complexes.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure we understood that
Correct.
that it wasn't going to identify one complex and then have a second flagpole identifying another. You're going to double up on those. Very good. Okay. All right.
Any additional questions?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the insight. Okay, comments? Any others?
No.
No? Okay. Well, like I said, I think this was well thought out. I'm glad to see the whole thing now as opposed to coming back in different stages, because I think this saves time both now and in the future. So, if there's no other comment, entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the minor plan sign program 11-13-3671, temporary subdivision and model home identification and directional signage for the Baker Ranch residential community, as presented in the staff report.
Second that,
and close the public hearing.
and I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thanks. Okay.
Item number 5 is a use permit for the Mirage Cultural Center and Banquet Facility. We've received a request from the applicant to have this application continue to January 9th, 2014.
Great. Okay, can we get a motion?
I'll move that we continue item number 5, the request for use permit 9-13-3571 for the Mirage Cultural Center and Banquet Facility located at 22731 Aspen Street to the January 9th Planning Commission meeting.
Second,
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. All right, that takes us to item number 6.
Item number 6, review of the 2013 to 2021 general plan housing element and a recommendation to City Council.
Commissioner Verplank and, Vice Chair Verplank and members of the Commission. Veronica Tam is our housing element consultant. They've been working with us for a little over a year, and you've seen one of her colleagues, Rick Brady, present to you here before. She has a brief presentation to go over our housing element.
great.
Great.
Well,
Thank
welcome.
you. Yeah, we would like to just update you on the housing element process, where we're at right now, and just a brief overview of what the housing element is. The housing element is part of your general plan. It's one of the 7 mandated elements of the general plan. It differs from the rest of the general plan in that the general plan in general has about 20 unit year to 30 years of time frame, but the housing element is shorter time frame. It also has very strict statutory requirements as to what govern the contents of the housing element. It also differs from the rest of the general plan in that it's the only element of the general plan that is required to be reviewed by a state agency for compliance, and the agency responsible for that is the State Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD. Now, the housing element has an 8-year planning period. Unlike the rest of the general plan, what we are dealing with is the 5th cycle of the update from 2013 to 2021. Within the housing element law, the housing element must look at several topics, particularly housing needs in the community, not only the current needs in the community, but also projected needs in the future, projected needs in the next 8 years. We need to look at constraints to housing development and preservation, market constraints, governmental constraints, and environmental constraints. You're not obligated to mitigate any kind of market or environmental constraints, but you are obligated to mitigate governmental constraints. In the housing element, we also need to look at opportunities for housing development and preservation, particularly when they talk about opportunities. They're dealing with how much sites or capacity you have to accommodate growth in the next 8 years. The housing element also has a housing plan section where you look at the programs, goals, and policies, what you're going to pursue over the next 8 years in addressing the needs that we identify in the housing element. And lastly, the housing element must have some quantified objectives so you can measure your progress annually. We are updating the housing element because housing element has a statutory deadline. For the Southern California Association of Governments, that deadline is October 15, 2013, with a 120-day grace period that put the final drop dead date to February 12, 2014. If we're able to adopt the housing element by that particular deadline, which we are on track of doing that, if you're able to adopt the housing element by that date, then your housing element is an 8-year housing element as established by state law. However, if any jurisdiction misses that deadline, then housing element automatically converts to a 4-year housing element, which means that you have to update the housing element 2 times within that 8-year planning period. By having a housing element that complies with state law, the City of Lake Forest would be eligible for funding funding programs that are administered by the State Housing and Community Development, primarily for affordable housing or infrastructure improvements associated with affordable housing. When we send a housing element to the state for review, there is one critical component of the review. It's called the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, RHNA. Now, Regional Housing Needs Allocation is assigned to the jurisdiction based on your position in the region. It does not necessarily mean that as housing needs generated from within the community is your share of the region's overall housing needs. And your regional housing needs for the next 8 years is 2,727 units divided into different income categories, very low, low, moderate, and above moderate income. And that particular income distribution is based on demographic census and some other correction factors. One thing to understand, though, the regional housing needs allocation is not an obligation to build. The city has no control over the market. You're not a developer. You have no obligation to build the units. Your obligation is to make sure that your land use policies, your zoning, and development standards are available in place that can facilitate and encourage the development of 2,727 units over the next 8 years. It's a capacity demonstration. It's not a construction requirement. This particular housing element is more technical in nature in terms of update because you just actually updated the housing element a few years back, and it's not much has changed. Since the last few years, there are no major changes in state law because the state was probably more focusing on the state budget issues. There hasn't been any major changes in state law. So this update focused on some of the demographic and housing information with the 2010 census data and the American Community Survey. We also revised the program to reflect the fact that a major funding source that the city used to have in redevelopment is no longer available. And also, we updated the housing element to address a new state law, SB 812, Housing for Persons with Developmental Disabilities. That particular requirement addresses housing opportunities for that group within the persons with disabilities population. And we also did add 2 programs to the housing element as required by state law on HCD. One is the monitoring of residential capacity. There's a requirement that as the city is approving projects, you need to compare it to your regional housing needs allocation if you have continued ability to meet your regional housing needs allocation. And finally, farm worker housing program. The city does have a couple of zoning districts, open space, and then an A1 districts where you allow agricultural uses. And by law, you have to allow farm worker housing, and that's the reason why we have to include a program in the housing element that the city will be amending the zoning code to address those specific requirements. In updating the housing element, the city provided opportunities for public input, particularly a planning commission study session in February before you, and February 28th. 2013, and then the draft housing element was presented before the City Council before we submit that to the state for review. The document was available for review at the same time, and when the state has the 60-day review. The 60-day review extended from August 12th to September, and we were able to get secure a finding of substantial compliance letter from the state, essentially saying that the housing element as revised fulfilled the requirements of state law. And so we are moving forward with the adoption process. The CEQA, the environmental document, has been completed. Staff is responding to a couple of the comment letters received, and we are projecting that we will be going to the City Council in January, therefore meeting the February 12th deadline. With that, I conclude my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any question you may have.
Questions?
Excuse me. First, I'd like to just say thank you for your time in putting this together. I think it's very helpful. At least for me it was. And I think you touched on it just now, and I know I'm remembering it, at least I think I'm remembering it from the February presentation of the draft. Am I understanding correctly that we do now have the letter from the state that says basically, you know, turn it in, it's good?
Correct.
Okay. And so I guess my question is, how much does this process that we do to get to this point actually cost the city? Approximately.
I actually don't recall my budget now. I think it's 20-something thousand.
25 to 35,000 is, I think.
So doing it once every 8 years would be better than once every 4.
That's always our recommendation. Well, no, for a consultant, I love to do it more often, but but then I wouldn't be doing my job if I lead you to that path.
I guess I mainly just wanted to point out, the substantial amount of work and resources that has gone into this, and that I'm grateful that it appears that we're going to get it done without having to default to the 4-year. So, thank you.
I don't have any questions for our consultant at this time.
I have no questions either. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, I guess we should open the public hearing. What do you think? Bring it back up here. I don't see anyone that wants to speak. So, all right. Who wants to jump in?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
So I want to thank Cheryl. She spent a lot of time on the phone with me and kind of bringing me up to speed. I wasn't at the first 2 public hearings, but I think I have a very good understanding of it after our conversation. Given the update deadline and that it's already been approved, I would wholeheartedly support this agenda item.
Okay. Commissioner Brower?
I kind of went out of order already, so I'm done.
Okay. Well, I have no objections, so do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Lake Forest recommending that the City Council approve General Plan Amendment 1013-3602, adopting the 2013-2021 housing element of the general plan.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Passes. Thank you. That was easy. We must have one of those easy buttons up here tonight.
That's right. I think you'll find the next one easy as well. Item 7, Planning Commission, reorganization of officers. Staff recommends that you table this item this evening and wait till we have 5 members on the commission, and we can then select a chair and a vice chair. That would mean that Vice Chair Verplank would continue to run the meetings as a vice chair.
I just want to confirm so that I'm understanding that we don't have any legal requirement to make our reorganization tonight. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
That's correct.
Okay.
So do we need a motion for that to table this item, or?
There's no need for a motion on this item.
It works for me. Keep it easy. Okay. All right. Well, that looks like we've come to the end of the rope here for tonight. Will take us into director's comments.
I wish the happy holidays to the commission. Our next meeting will be on Thursday, January 9th. We will be here over Christmas, and we're going to attempt to get that packet to you a little bit earlier than we typically do, but we will be back on January the 9th.
Okay. Mr. Richardson?
I have no comments tonight, Mr. Vice Chairman.
That doesn't surprise me. Okay. Commissioner Fuentes, let's start with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I want to welcome Jessica. I have an Irvine grad, so zot, zot, zot to you. And welcome to the City of Lake Forest, I guess, back. And thank you for your good work tonight. You did a great job. I wanted to say that I have heard in comments to Dr. DeGardner, I have heard others other than the mayor that might be interested in the arena soccer, so he's not the only one. I tried to clarify at the last meeting through our attorney the role of the Planning Commission, because on several occasions it has been questioned why we don't plan, and it is my understanding that the role of the Planning Commission is to take direction from the City Council. and also to review requests like we reviewed tonight that have come from the public. So with regards to planning, and if there are issues that our citizens would like the Planning Commission to plan, I think the best route is to go to the City Council and ask the City Council to direct us to do some planning. But we really have our hands tied because we cannot create new agenda items, according to my newest lawyer. And with regards to the holiday, I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Commissioner Brower?
Thank you. The only thing I would add is it's my understanding as to specifically Whispering Hills that that piece of property was granted to the city specifically for use as a park. So even if we had the power to agendize it, there's not a whole lot we could do other than give some direction on what type of park. I may be wrong, but that's my understanding. Other than that, Merry Christmas to all, and for now, a good night.
Okay. Well, I do have a few things I'd like to address. First of all, I think on the first motion, I'm not sure that we closed the public hearing. And so if we didn't, let's go ahead and let's modify that so that we do note that the record knows that we did, in fact, close the public hearing on that first item before we approved it. It's a little bit after the fact, but I think we get it. All right. We appreciate the public comments. Mr. Gardner, you are always a delight and a welcome, and we thank you for that. I think you brought up a legitimate point with regard to signs, with regard to music. I'm not sure how we should address that. So maybe that's something that maybe the staff, we can take a look at that maybe a little more in depth, because we do have new housing development that's going to be approximately 2,400 new homes that are certainly within relative proximity. I happen to live within relative proximity of that facility, and fortunate enough that nothing has ever happened in 30 years, and quite grateful for that. But maybe this is a topic we should discuss, so I would ask that maybe staff can look into that and we can have some dialogue on that at a future date with regard to that. I would also like staff, if you could talk to Public Works on a couple of items. One of them, I noticed since the Alton Parkway extension has been completed, when you exit out of the shopping center there by Walmart, where you have In-N-Out and Goodyear Tire, the monument sign that Goodyear has there is a huge obstruction to the line of sight for traffic safety. And maybe we could have our traffic people go out and take a look at that and see if maybe that should be relocated so that it doesn't impair that line of sight quite to the degree that it does. Because traffic does come up there now that it goes through. People have a tendency to be moving at a fairly decent rate of speed. I think we just want to head that one off. And there's another area that's right at, since we've widened the lanes on Trabuco by the cemetery right at Via del Rio, when there are cars parked on Trabuco because of a service at the cemetery, that does limit that line of sight for cars exiting out of Via del Rio turning towards Lake Forest. Just another, maybe somebody should just take a look at that and to ascertain if in fact that is a real hazard. I've had some people make comment to me with regard to that. And then if we could have our Public Works Department take a look at the landscape area right at the corner of Treeline and Trabuco, leading into that housing tract. That was all just recently re-landscaped with the Trabuco Streetscape project, and some of the old Myoporum has resprouted on the slope up there and seems to be racing to gain back its previous status, which was just overgrown tremendously. So probably use a little landscape review on that particular area. So those are the items that I did have, along with to welcome Jessica back. and to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody in 2014. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn to the next regular scheduled Planning Commission 2014.